Welcome to Bioverse, your gateway to the lives of legendary scientists. Let's dive into brilliance.
Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest videos. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't carry a weapon. He didn't fight on the battlefield. But he helped end the deadliest war in human history, with nothing but logic, machines, and silence. He was a genius. A mathematician. A codebreaker. A dreamer. He imagined machines that could think, decades before computers existed. He saved millions of lives, yet was punished for who he loved. His name was erased. His work was buried. His truth was denied. Today, we call him the father of artificial intelligence. But back then, he was just Alan. Just a man trying to make sense of a broken world. This is the story of Alan Turing, the man who cracked the code and paid the price. Long before he saved lives, long before he imagined machines that could think, Alan Turing was just a boy, a quiet, brilliant boy who didn't belong. He was born in London in 1912, into a world that demanded obedience, tradition, and silence. From the very beginning, Alan stood apart. He didn't speak like other children. He didn't play like them. He didn't think like them. While others chased balls in the schoolyard, Alan chased patterns, in numbers, in nature, in thought. He was fascinated by symmetry, by logic, by the invisible rules that governed the universe. His teachers called him distracted. His classmates called him odd. But Alan didn't care. He was building a world inside his mind, a world of puzzles, equations, and possibilities. He once biked over 60 miles alone just to get to school when trains weren't running. Not for attention. Not for praise. Just because he believed in showing up. At Sherborne School, Alan met Christopher Morcom, a fellow student who shared his love of science. Christopher was everything Alan admired: brilliant, kind, confident. Their friendship was deep, intense, and transformative. For the first time, Alan felt seen. Understood. Safe. He fell in love, quietly, painfully, in a time when such feelings were forbidden. Then, tragedy struck. Christopher died suddenly of tuberculosis. Alan was shattered. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He wrote. He calculated. He searched for meaning in the laws of physics, in the possibility of consciousness beyond death. He wrote in his diary, "I am more interested in the possibility of survival after death than I ever was before." That loss changed him. It hardened him. It deepened his resolve. He began to dream of machines, not just tools, but minds. Minds that could think, learn, remember. Minds that wouldn't die. The world saw a strange, lonely boy. But inside, a genius was awakening. A genius who would one day challenge the boundaries of war, of science, of humanity itself. The world was collapsing. Cities turned to rubble. Families were torn apart. Every day, the death toll climbed higher. But in a quiet English estate called Bletchley Park, a different kind of war was being fought. A war of silence. A war of minds. In 1939, Nazi Germany unleashed a terrifying weapon, not just tanks and planes, but encrypted communication. The Enigma machine was their secret weapon. A device that scrambled messages into unreadable code, changing its settings daily, with over 150 quintillion possible combinations. The Allies were blind. They couldn't see the enemy's plans. They couldn't hear their next move. And so, Britain turned to its most unlikely soldiers, mathematicians, linguists, chess champions, and one quiet, eccentric genius named Alan Turing. Turing arrived at Bletchley Park with little fanfare. He didn't wear a uniform. He didn't carry a weapon. He carried notebooks, equations, and a mind that refused to accept the impossible. While others tried to decode Enigma by hand, Turing proposed something radical: let the machine break the machine. He designed the bomb, an electromechanical device that could simulate Enigma's logic and test thousands of settings in minutes. It was loud. It was clunky. It was imperfect. But it worked. With each breakthrough, the Allies began to read the enemy's secrets, submarine positions, bombing targets, invasion plans. Turing's machine didn't just decode messages, it saved lives. Historians estimate that his work shortened the war by 2 years and saved over 14 million lives. But inside Bletchley Park, there were no celebrations. No medals. No headlines. Everything was classified. The bomb was dismantled. The files were buried. Turing and his team were sworn to secrecy. They couldn't tell their families. They couldn't publish their work. Alan returned to civilian life with no recognition. No applause. But he carried something heavier than pride, the knowledge that he had changed the course of history, and no one would ever know. He had fought a war without bullets. And he had won. The war was over. The world was rebuilding. But Alan Turing was already thinking ahead, not about nations, but about minds. He had seen what machines could do. They could break codes. They could save lives. But what if they could do more? What if machines could think? In 1950, Turing published a paper titled Computing Machinery and Intelligence. It began with a simple question: can machines think? But instead of answering directly, he proposed a test, a game. A human would talk to 2 hidden entities, one human, one machine. If the machine could convince the human that it was also human, then perhaps it was intelligent. This became known as the Turing test, the foundation of artificial intelligence. Decades before Siri, ChatGPT, or self-driving cars, Turing imagined a future where machines could learn, adapt, and even feel. He wasn't just building computers. He was building philosophy. But society wasn't ready. His ideas were dismissed as science fiction. His brilliance was overshadowed by prejudice. He continued working, designing one of the first modern computers, the Automatic Computing Engine, ACE. He explored biology, trying to understand how patterns formed in nature. He wrote about morphogenesis, symmetry, and randomness. He was no longer just a mathematician. He was a visionary. But behind the equations, behind the theories, Alan was still alone. The war had ended. But his personal war, with society, with silence, with shame, had just begun. He saved millions. He shortened a war. He changed the future. But none of it could protect him from the law. In 1952, Alan Turing was arrested. Not for treason. Not for espionage. But for being gay. Homosexuality was illegal in Britain. And despite his wartime service, his genius, his legacy, the government charged him with gross indecency. He was given a choice: prison or chemical castration. Alan chose the latter. A series of hormone injections designed to suppress his desires, but they also weakened his body, clouded his mind, and stripped away his dignity. He lost his security clearance. He was banned from working on government projects. His name, once whispered in secret halls of victory, was now erased from public memory. He continued to work, quietly, privately. He studied biology, wrote papers, tried to stay afloat. But the world had turned its back. On June 7, 1954, Alan Turing was found dead. A half-eaten apple lay beside his bed. He had died from cyanide poisoning. Some say it was suicide. Others believe it was an accident, a chemical mishap in his home lab. But the truth is, the world broke him long before the poison did. He was 41 years old. No funeral. No monument. No recognition. Just silence. The man who helped end a war, died in shame, alone. For decades, his name was forgotten. His work was buried. His story was untold. But truth has a way of resurfacing. In the 1980s, historians began to uncover the secrets of Bletchley Park. They found the machines, the documents, the equations. And they found Alan. The man who had cracked Enigma. The man who had imagined thinking machines. The man who had been punished for being himself. Slowly, the world began to listen. In 2009, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown issued a formal apology. "We're sorry. You deserved so much better." In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II granted Alan Turing a royal pardon. Statues were built. Streets were renamed. His face appeared on the £50 banknote, surrounded by binary code and the bomb machine. But his true legacy isn't carved in stone. It lives in every algorithm. Every chatbot. Every self-driving car. Every machine that tries to understand us. Alan Turing didn't just change science. He changed the way we think about thinking. He taught us that intelligence isn't limited to flesh and bone. That minds can be built. That truth matters. And that silence, no matter how deep, can be broken. Today, we call him the father of artificial intelligence. But he was more than that. He was a hero. A visionary. And a reminder that genius often walks alone. He cracked the code that saved millions, and dreamed of machines that could think. But the world wasn't ready for his truth. Alan Turing didn't just change science. He changed the future. And today, every algorithm, every AI, every digital thought, carries a piece of his legacy. If this story moved you, if you believe in truth, brilliance, and justice, help us keep his memory alive. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of forgotten geniuses, scientific rebels, and minds that shaped our world. Like, comment, and share, because some stories deserve to be heard. This was the story of Alan Turing. The man who taught machines to think, and reminded us what it means to be human. Please leave us a comment and share your ideas for the next video with us. New stories, new discoveries, coming soon. Until next time, stay curious.